I'm a diamond and gemology graduate. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the grading of polished diamonds. So what exactly are grading of polished diamonds? We have seen the gradings range from FL to I, right? So FL is flawless, which has no inclusions at all. And then we have I, which is included. That means it has extreme amount of inclusions. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the characteristic under each of these categories that we talk about. So let's get right into the video. We start with flawless. A flawless diamond shows no inclusions or blemishes when examined under 10x magnification. This kind of diamond will not have any kind of inclusion or blemishes at all. But a few things can be, seen by an experienced grader. And these are completely allowed for a flawless diamond. These are naturals confined entirely in the girdle outline. So there could be some naturals. Naturals are basically inclusions or impurities that are formed completely by the nature, and they're not inside a stone, they're just very slightly towards a stone. So they could be entirely visible in the girdle outline. Internal graining must not be visible under 10x magnification. It's a very important point. Internal graining should not be visible, and they are usually not visible in a flawless stone. Small extra facet on the pavilion near the girdle should not be visible from face up, in case if there's an extra facet, that is. So in some stones the grader might or the cutter might cut an extra facet, right? But these extra facets cannot be visible. We then have any inscriptions within the girdle should not appear or penetrate towards the surface when viewed from a 10x magnification. Probably through 20x or 50x we could, we might see them, but under 10x it should not be visible. These are some major important qualities we have to note when checking a flawless stone. But again, we might not get so many flawless stones because flawless stones are very, very rare and they're super expensive. And also they're not that, worth to pay so much money and really get them. So you probably will not be coming across these kind of stones, but even if you do, you have to ensure these 4 things that are there. As you can see in this picture, I'll just let you read for a minute or so. We then move to IF. So IF is basically internally flawless. An internally flawless diamond shows no inclusions, but it does shows insignificant blemishes. So blemishes are marks that are created by human beings, right? Because of carelessness and human error. And this is accepted in an internally flawless stone, but no inclusions are accepted. So the polished features like abrasion, polished lines can be present in the IF stone. You can't, polish and features and abrasion, polished lines are everything completely blemishes. They're not inclusions. So because of this factor, they're completely allowed to be there in a IF stone. And we could also see a few naturals present in IF stone, because naturals also are present in flawless stones, but except they're very small, and here they might be a little bit visible. Extra facets are pretty much visible here. In the flawless we saw extra facets were not visible, but in here you can see a little bit of extra facets. So extra facets are cut because of the shine, to create extra shininess for the stone. That is why the graders cut the extra facet, and it's completely understandable to have an extra facet in IF. But whereas in flawless you're not allowed to have extra facet. You are allowed to have it, but you should not be able to see it. It shouldn't be that visible or prominent in the eye. Again, coming back, surface graining that is not very reflecting is allowed in here. In the flawless we saw that there should be no surface graining, that is like surface graining cannot be very visible. But here surface graining is allowed to be a little bit visible, but it can't be too reflecting. These are some important factors. These 4 factors, the polished features like polished line, abrasion can be there. The naturals can also be visible. The extra facets can be visible very mildly, and surface graining that is not very reflecting can also be visible. We then move on to very, very slightly influid. So very, very slightly influid is VVS1 and VVS2. So VVS diamonds contain minute inclusions that are difficult even for experienced graders to find out and clearly notice. So I will just go through the points that are okay and agreeable on a VVS stone. So minute inclusions like pinpoints that could be both in black and white, needles, feathers or internal graining, they can be visible only through a 10x loop, or it should be extremely hard to see face up. These kind of inclusions should be a little hard to find out, because if it's easy then the higher clarity grade will not be there. In a VVS stone it can't be that visible. But pinpoints majorly are allowed. And then pinpoints, needles, internal graining are also difficult to see in 10x. This is basically in VVS2. Minute surface reaching inclusions are also allowed, like cavity, feather, bruise, and the bearding, girdle bearding and internal natural. They're also, allowed to be there in a VVS stone. Where exactly do we find inclusions in a VVS stone? We find them very near the girdle facets. These inclusions are very small. So the word that we use for the size is minute. And the number can be around 1 to 2. Countable, okay? It can be little up, little low, but averagely on a number basis, there will be 1 to 2 inclusions present in a VVS stone. We then move on to very slightly included. So very slightly included also involve VS1 and VS2. So these can contain minor inclusions slightly bigger than the previous one that we saw. And if you observe with little bit of effort in the next loop, it will be easy to identify them. So minor inclusions like small crystals, knots or distinct clouds. So as we saw in the previous one, we have not seen any kind of cloud there, right? We only saw pinpoints and we saw needles and stuff like that. But here in VS, we are also seeing clouds. Clouds are compared a little bigger and little more, prominent to the eye. Minor surface reaching inclusions like a feather or cavity, which are little bit bigger than the VVS stones, the inclusion that we see in the VVS stones. If they are like extremely teeny tiny, this could be little bigger than that. If it is little bigger than that, then we involve this in VS1 category and VS1 and VS2 category. Where do we exactly find the inclusions present in VS1 and VS2? It is near the girdle facet. It is also there in the bezel facet, but center should be absolutely clean. If you saw in the previous one, VVS1 and VVS2, we saw it was only near the girdle. So it wouldn't be that visible when set in a diamond stone or in a diamond jewelry. But in this one, you can also see it in the bezel facet. As you can see in this picture, this right here is a bezel. So bezel is a top view, right? But at the same time, it should be very clean in the table. That is the center of the stone. And the size of this category is minor. It is compared a little bigger than the previous category which we saw, that is minute. And the number of inclusion that can be present inside is 3 to 4. It is a little bit countable, so it can be little 3 to 4, 5 also is agreeable, but on an average I'm saying. In very rare cases, we might also see VS stone contain eye visible inclusion, but that is like really rare. In many cases, we will not be able to easily see the inclusion present in the VS stone. We then move on to SI. So what exactly is SI? SI is slightly included category. This has two categories under it, SI1 and SI2. SI diamonds contain noticeable inclusions. As we all know that SI inclusions are compared a little bigger than the inclusion that we see in the previous categories. So SI inclusions will be easy to identify by a grader compared to the previous inclusions that we saw, compared to the previous categories we saw. So noticeable inclusions like small crystals, spray pinpoints, feathers and bigger clouds and twinning wisps are noticeable inside SI. Surface reaching inclusions such as cavity, nicks, chips. Chips are one important thing that we have to see. Chips are majorly found in SI category, bigger chips and all. And indented natural is also really present in SI category. The location of where the inclusion is present in SI category, it is near the girdle facet, it is in the bezel facet, exactly like how we saw in the previous category. It is near the girdle, in the bezel, this right here is the bezel, and the star facet as well. This is a little top above near the table. And very rarely it is also there in the table. Table is a round center middle part. So this part, it is extremely rare. Majorly it is there near the girdle, in the bezel and in the star facet. And the size is comparatively noticeable. In the first category we saw it's very minute, and in VS category we saw it is minor, and in SI we are saying it is noticeable. Once we see the stone, we will be able to notice the inclusions. And the number can range somewhere from say 7 to 8. In the previous category we saw it is around 3 to 4 or sometimes even 5. But here it is somewhat 7 to 8, which is on a little bit of higher scale. We then move on to included. So what exactly is included? As the name easily suggests, included means the impurities or the inclusions are completely included in a diamond in a very huge manner and affecting it in a greater extent. So included has three categories in it, I1, I2 and I3. So I1 category has around 20% of inclusion or impurity inside a stone. I2 category has around 50% of inclusion inside a stone, and I3 has around 75% of inclusion inside a stone. So I3, you can imagine it will be the worst. As you can see, this is the three comparison. I1 is partly included, you can very much visibly see it, but it is better than I2 and I3. And I2 is like half of the stone is included, and in I3 pretty much the entire stone is included. So I3 is the worst. And that is about it for today's video. I'll see you guys in the next video shortly. Bye bye.